Did I say it correctly? Did I get it right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Spot
Okay.
on.
Got it. He's the strategic growth partner with a company called Loud Collective. So we're excited to have you here today. And really, today's topic, we're just going to dive in to learn about your journey through business and life and just some best practices for younger generations of what they could be doing to be successful. So before we jump into some questions, I'd love if you could just take a few minutes, introduce yourself and your company or companies.
Yes. So, David Gorsage, I'm a strategic growth partner with Loud Collective. I've really been a performance coach most of my career. I started off in the investment banking arena, and that's kind of where the Loud Collective um, model kind of came to fruition. We are an ecosystem of former founders, CEOs that have exited. Our goal is just to disrupt the entire private equity market. So we have a full array of venture capital, a process we call the Loud Ignite process. We have Loud Lift. So we have the ecosystem is designed to help founders in this kind of climate. If you're familiar with the silver tsunami, where there's over $13 trillion of assets that are going to be transferred based upon current business owners that don't have the next generation of their family to pass on that company. So the greatest challenge that presents to them is when they have to sell. So that's what we help them do is prepare them. It's kind of like if you're going to sell a home, do I need to remodel the kitchen? Do I need to paint the bathroom? That's what we do with a company is help them we come in and help them understand the dynamics of that organization that helps them maximize their enterprise value.
That's really interesting. I definitely want to hear more about that because that's something that I'm very interested in. But very cool. I love hearing that. And actually, I think you're probably the first guest we've had that is in a company structured like that with the venture capital model. So that's very cool. And I think you're going to bring some unique perspectives from what we're used to. So thanks for sharing that. I definitely want to just dive in with a high level just question on what inspired you to go this path, right? Like you're in the coaching and the consulting and the private equity, why? What drove you to that part of
That's a very good question. It is the foundation. It's kind of what's the why? What is my why? And it really goes crazy as it sounds. It goes all the way back to my senior year of high school, many years ago. I was a Division I athlete, but I was an athlete and aspiring to be a Division I athlete when I was a senior in high school. And I was a football player, and that's where a lot of my offers were coming from. And the game, the 2 weeks before the first game, I blew out my knee. So that ended everything. And as it relates to football, but I was aspiring. I was also a pretty decent baseball player. So I went to my coach and I just said, I want to play baseball in Division I. And he goes, yeah, what's the problem? I said, well, it's where I want to play. He says, what's the problem? What are you getting at here? I said, well, I want to play at Southern Illinois University in Carbondale. Well, they're known for going to the College World Series predominantly every year. Well, I was going to be a walk-on though. So what caused me to coach was because I made the team. But it was the key thing that he said to me when I said I wanted to play at Southern Illinois University. What was the little person on my shoulder was basically saying the next thing he's going to say is, you've had a good run. You might want to kind of dial back your aspirations. But that's not what he said. He goes, you can do that. So why I coach and help other companies and individuals really achieve their highest level of performance is because how many of us have really that person in our life that never said to them, you can do that. So that was the why that I got into what I do.
I love
But
it.
the other part of it was the next part of that story, which I made the team. It was about 2 weeks later, and my coaches came to me and they said, hey, would you be interested in going down to Chipola Junior College for 2 years and then come back, matriculate back here? Now, where my ego was at that time, my head said, why in the bleep would I do that? I just made a Division I team. Why would I want to go to a junior college? But what was important about that lesson to me was just because you have achieved a goal doesn't mean you've achieved your greatness yet. So those are the two key reasons why I do what I do. It's helping. It's not about the bottom line dollar within maximizing the value of a company, but it's maximizing the people that have created that value. Because a lot of times private equity steps in and strips out a lot of those things, which basically leaves people out of a job. And the legacy of that owner is frankly charred because of those people that are left. So this is why I do what I do.
I love the story. That's awesome. I think it helps to paint the picture of how you're different too, because again, you said a lot of companies will come in and just clean house, right? And you're out there with a bigger, better mission. So that's really cool to hear. Can you think of a pivotal moment? And I'm kind of putting you on the spot to think back, right? A pivotal moment in your career that, beyond sports, that's I think that definitely, started it, right? The foundation. But let's talk post college. A pivotal
No,
moment.
no, that's yeah. And that's
Yeah.
another very. You're right. It is a very pivotal moment. Like I said, I started off in investment banking in California with one of the largest, very well known firms at that time that is no longer in existence.
Mm.
It was probably what is called the first Wall Street debacle. So if you want to kind of put the pieces of the puzzle together, you could probably figure it out. But we had our first child, and she was born. Well, we didn't know at that time. She's a special needs child, but we were in California, moved back to Indianapolis, and because of her condition, when she was about 9 months old, I spent a lot of time in the medical library just trying to research about her situation. I was always kind of a doctor wannabe. So I just got really despondent in the investment banking world. And I actually did 180 degrees and went into be an orthopedic trauma specialist.
Oh my God. You've done it all.
So I went from PE ratios, beta coefficients to anatomy and physiology. So um, that was interesting because now I was not the doctor. I was the specialist that trained the surgeon on how to do a very specialized surgery. And in Indianapolis, with the capital, racing capital of the world, race car driving is obviously one of the biggest elements. So I was trained in a very specific procedure on how to put drivers back together when they crashed into the wall. And I mean back to their feet, their ankles, their legs. So the challenge with that though was after 10 years, we have 7 kids, but at that time we had 5. And my wife said, you need to rethink this career because you're like a doctor. You're always gone. I
Yeah.
mean, trauma surgery is never scheduled. So
Yeah.
I basically went into a headhunter, and there's a little bit more of the story, but for the sake of time. So I went into a headhunter, and she said, why don't you become a headhunter? And I said, why would I do that? She goes, well, you understand how to build companies. You understand human behavior. I'll get you even trained as a behaviorist. And there's this thing right now called the .com era that developing, and I think you could really do well in building high performance executive teams. And so that was really my first step into the what we call performance coaching, executive coaching. Performance coaching is a little bit different than executive coaching, but that's where my first step into that. So really, my wife basically saying, you need to rethink your career and get out of medical. And so I went back into the business world and started my own company and kind of built my legacy from there.
I love that. You've really kind of checked a lot of different boxes career-wise and very different too. So that's pretty cool. You don't meet a lot of people that do that. Usually, people study something in college and either they stick with it or something totally opposite. But the fact you keep going back to learn more is very cool. So, and 7 kids, wow, that's a lot of kids. I have 3, and I can't imagine 7. So good for you. Can you talk through an obstacle, right? What was one of the toughest obstacles you remember, maybe earlier on in your career, or again, maybe during a pivotal moment at some point that you faced, and how did you overcome it?
Well, I think that you alluded to it. We all get we all get kind of want to play the same script that prior generations, our parents or our family or the culture that we live in wants to. I've always been a maverick, and it's so it's. I've always had. I don't know if I've ever. When you say an obstacle or, I mean, there's always a challenge. I mean, every day there's a challenge, but it really boils down to a decision. Do I want this to defeat me or I want this to define me? And so to me, it's always been, what do I want to do with this particular moment that can really define me versus defeat me? So making the switch from investment banking to medical device to, going back into building, starting my own company, and then even expanding that into other founders and other colleagues, and being able to accept that I don't have all the answers, but I can create an ecosystem or a what we call the house of wisdom to really expand what we currently know. I'm always been an optimist, so I don't know if there's ever been a defining moment in that. I think it's every day. It's a matter of what decision you choose to make in any defining moment.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. I think that, I mean, obviously, like you said, there's going to be challenges no matter which path you're going. It's exactly what you said, right? It's what decisions and it's the attitude, right? I try to tell my kids that all the time. You're going to fail, but work on your attitude. That's what I care about the most is have that winning
Absolutely.
attitude and you'll overcome it. Awesome. I know we're coming up on time here soon, so I do want to end on just advice, right? If people listening to this, younger professionals or younger entrepreneurs who are just kind of starting off in a new business, what's a piece of advice that you would give somebody, especially when they're early on and you remember the grind and when you're early on and starting a business and just how challenging that can be to stand out amongst all the competitors out there.
Well, I think number one is believe in yourself, and I know sometimes that can be hard, especially when you're beginning. But if you need to leverage or kind of have training wheels on yourself, create a tribe of those that you feel like you're definitely not the smartest person in the room or the smartest person in that cohort, that group, because find the people that really care about you. And if you find the people that care about you, they want you to succeed. They want to help you become a better version of yourself. And I think that today there's so many things that are out there. There's so many great opportunities that, my gosh, the opportunity to create your own company today is even more obvious than ever. So get in groups that really challenge you. Get in groups that people that elevate you, who you are, and help you know who you are and what you do best. Find your unique ability, and once you find that, monetize it.
Yeah, double down. Love it. Well, David, this was awesome. Short and sweet. I think you gave us a lot of really good points to think through. I loved hearing your personal stories of, especially kind of even going back to high school senior year into college. That could really crush somebody, right? When you have an injury and
Oh,
it,
absolutely.
and it does all the time, and that could really shape in a negative way somebody's life from that point on. But I love hearing how you pivoted and continue to do that. So thank you for sharing that. I think it's really encouraging for our listeners to hear that.
Absolutely.
As
I
we
would say
wrap,
I always sign off with this: just go do great things.